Man. This shit is crazy out here, boy. Fuck we got going on out here, but we about to get to the straight to the video. We ain't even gonna play around with them.
Where's when the family...
We're not gonna even play with them. Let's get straight on it. Let's get straight on it. Let's go! Fuck is yo talking? Fuck yo on. Looking like a goddamn banana.
Why was it to their advantage to get rid of you?
Because I was the type of person who would say, you doing that for what reason? Nah, you can't do that. The rule says that you can't do this, you can't do this. This is what the rules say. And
The rules of the prison or the rules of the
the
streets?
game. The rules of the street. Yeah, there was rules. I was a rule guy. I'm still a rule guy. I like rules. You know, I like rules. I like structure. I like things to be a certain way. And it was to their advantage to get rid of me.
Crazy story, but you probably have something in your freezer at home that you would say shouldn't be there, but you...
Yeah, the rules. Man, these fucking people. Why is such thing as lawyers then? They slip through rules. That's why they be getting motherfuckers, they be doing like 2 years and they killed some goddamn body. Got away with the shit because the rules that's being sold. Fuck it. I'm getting it.
It's like a TV dinner or brown bananas, some kind of an ancient frozen vegetable. Or in the case of this guy in the Bronx, this is not a joke, there was a severed head in the guy's freezer.
You know what they say, family. Don't believe everything you hear. Today we go over another example of why everyone is not to be trusted. Today we talk about a New York man who been wearing a disguise since he's been released from prison after a 20-plus year sentence.
Him?
He recently went on a Joe Rogan podcast, which we'll later check out. For those who wondering, we will go over how he got on Joe Rogan podcast to begin with. But it seems he went on there and talked about things like changing his life since being released from prison. And he also talked about how he landed in prison. But within the last 48 hours, his disguise has been caught on camera after he allegedly killed someone in his apartment and disassembled the body by having the head in the freezer. So today, we're going to see who this man is. Check out what he did within the last 48 hours that landed him in handcuffs again. See who the victim is, send out love and condolences to the family, and most of all, learn from this experience. So before we go over this one, remember, I won't give you no angle. I just give you the story.
Man, don't. Boy. Nigga talking about rules of the game, this and that, and I'm still rule. Man, it's a front. You see these motherfuckers on this motherfucker internet front. I'm gonna leave half this shit. Honestly, I don't believe. It's just entertainment everywhere on the internet for me. I really don't be giving a fuck. Motherfuckers be trying to do this, do that. It's just strictly entertainment. I don't really give a fuck about none of it. Don't give a fuck how, and that's how anybody should feel. Don't give a fuck how nobody feel of you. Fuck them.
With that being said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're going to jump right to it. Fam, when it comes to podcasting, Joe Rogan is at the top of the food chain. His show is considered the most viewed podcast in the world. It was reported that he inked a $250 million deal from Spotify. So to even be a guest on his platform is a pretty big deal. And Joe Rogan podcasts have segments where he allowed people who was wrongfully convicted on his platform. But the last month episode was a little bit different. They admitted that this man was guilty.
Convicted. So I don't want to bury the headline. Sheldon is guilty.
Sheldon was a guest. Sheldon Johnson, 48 years old, a staffer for the public law firm and Queens Defenders, a criminal justice activist, and of course to be on that segment of the podcast.
That's the head in that bag.
And it probably sounds repetitive, but another miracle sitting to my right, just like a marvelous human being who was basically told by a judge, by an African-American judge, that you don't matter, you don't count, and I'm going to throw your life away for a crime in which the victim received 2 stitches, and on a second offense, his first offense being a gun possession charge. So I will say this, that he received a sentence that far eclipses a sentence that would be commonly doled out for murder or manslaughter.
Now, Sheldon been locked up since 1999 for robbery, but it seemed his victim at the time got pistol whipped. But at the time of his arrest in 1999, he was a convicted felon. He was caught with a firearm 2 years prior. And before we talk about why the judge gave him a hefty sentence after turning down a 22-year plea, the reason Sheldon said he did what he did was because when he came home after the first time, a guy that owed him money, he saw with this girl.
This nigga ain't just owe you money, he slept with your girl. Man, you gotta take some shit to the chin, man. Fuck him.
Came home after the first time.
That's why that nigga say he obey rules. That's why that nigga owed me money. You supposed to pay me that money. That's against the rule if you don't. Then you go sleep with my girl. That's another rule you broke. He gotta get handled. That's what it was.
A guy that owed him money.
That's what it was.
It seemed he gave out drugs on confinement. One guy didn't want to pay up. He got his location. He pulled up with some other guys, robbed him from his jury, robbed his girl from her jury, and pistol whipped him. He did the same thing for the same reason to a guy who sold drugs out of his auto body shop. The judge gave him 25 years apiece, 50 years, but they ran concurrent. He came home after serving just 21. He said he was a high-ranking blood gang member, but he claims he let that go while he was incarcerated. He felt he was sentenced unfairly. As we mentioned, he came home. He claimed to be a criminal justice activist, but now, less than 48 hours ago, facing M1 charges after a cop found a disassembled body inside a Bronx apartment with the accused killer caught on surveillance video disguised in a blonde wig at the scene of the crime. Shortly after, Sheldon Johnson, 48 years old, was led out the 44th Precinct station house in handcuffs Thursday after police made the grisly discovery. A human torso in a blue bin and a head stashed in the freezer in the 6th floor of the apartment complex. Right now, he's being held without bail. Sources said the victim was identified as 44-year-old Colin Small, who may have beef with Johnson while both were doing time at Sing Sing Prison in Westchester County. Want to say rest in peace to Colin Small and love and condolences to his family.
Crazy story, but you probably have something in your freezer at home that you would say shouldn't be there. But usually it's like a TV dinner or brown bananas, some kind of an ancient frozen vegetable, or in the case of this guy in the Bronx, this is not a joke, there was a severed head in the guy's freezer. So police have now arrested this 48-year-old, Sheldon Johnson, after doing...
He gonna say this is not a joke, but he making a joke. Okay, we gonna
routine wellness check and the discovery of dismembered body parts in his apartment. This is in the Bronx in New York. He's an ex-con to begin with, but the thing about him is he turned into this criminal justice advocate, recently rubbing shoulders with the likes of the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, and even sat down with Joe Rogan to discuss his advocacy work.
And I said to myself, I've been doing bad for so long, I'm going to try to do something good. If all else fails, I could always go back to doing bad.
Is that a black
but let me try.
Shirt?
Not hard enough, I guess, in terms of trying. Let's bring Laura Engel in on this. News Nation's Laura Engel's beyond gruesome are really the details of this, but tell us more about it.
It is, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what happened here, because you saw that interview and it looked like he really had his life together. And again, this is just if true. And there have been a lot of people rooting for Sheldon Johnson after his release from prison. He's had this underdog story of rehabilitation, which turned him into that criminal justice advocate you said about. He's made the rounds doing public appearances, including the popular Joe Rogan podcast, talking about doing time and turning his life around to help others. And this storyline took this alleged dark turn this week when Johnson was arrested and arraigned on murder and manslaughter charges for the brutal killing of a Bronx man this week. Now, Johnson is also accused of dismembering his alleged victim and putting body parts in bags, bins, and a freezer. Neighbors of the victim, who has been identified as 44-year-old Colin Small, say they heard these two guys arguing Tuesday, and then they heard a man pleading for his life saying, "Please don't, I have a family." Then they say they heard gunshots being fired from inside Small's apartment. Police allege
Come on now. Come on now. Yeah, he got to have a problem up in here, because, like, how you don't feel like you're not going to get caught
Dismembered
unless you
small
don't
and
give a
stuffed his
fuck.
body parts into plastic bags and putting even his head in the freezer. Now, just last month on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Johnson said he used to be a member of the Bloods gang and that he decided to turn his life around out of getting out of solitary confinement while in prison. Listen.
I got into school. I got my GED. From there, I got involved in correspondence courses. I started interacting with guys who were teaching ART, aggression replacement training, and I started to begin to understand how these concepts work, what positive visualization is, deep breathing, how to remove yourself, conflict resolution. All of these ideas of change began to take place with me.
Now, Johnson became a client advocate for the nonprofit law group Queen's Defenders sometime after being released from prison. He served 2 decades for a series of armed robberies in 1999, and that's what we know about him.
Okay, that's what we know about him now. And then where does this go from here? What's next in this case?
He's expected to be in court on Monday. He has pled not guilty. We've also reached out to the Queen's Defenders where Johnson worked.
Then the nigga pleaded not guilty. Boy.
They declined to comment, so we're going to wait till Monday and see what he has to say. When he was brought out, he yelled to reporters, "I'm innocent." So we'll see.
You cover stuff like this all the time, but and this would be a terrible story no matter what. But just the idea, you listen to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, the guy looked like he had his whole life together.
That's right.
And he was like an example.
Yes.
For other people.
That's right.
I guess it just shows you never know.
You look like
you just never
anything
know.
on the
And
internet.
there are surveillance photos that we haven't been able to obtain yet, and hopefully we'll have those for you next week, showing what appears to be Johnson coming out of this apartment complex with a blonde wig on. Other people in the apartment complex said there's something weird going on. Somebody's removing bins at 2 o'clock in the morning. This doesn't look right. They called police for a wellness check because they heard the shots, and then they heard somebody say, "Please, please, no." And so, this is just a wild story that continues to turn.